Well, welcome everybody, and good on you for being here today, either live streaming or here in this room, given that it's 80 degrees out on our beautiful campus. Students starting to trickle out and explore what it's like to be in the spring again. It's definitely springtime here. This is an exciting moment. This is the culmination. Vision 2026 is the culmination of comprehensive planning. It began way back in the before times in 2019 when we invited the community in to listen and brainstorm and strategize about the roadmap for our future. A lot of things have changed since then, but what we have here is a true starting line, not a finish line, as you'll hear, but a true starting line that builds on many areas of strength to position William and Mary to lead in the 21st century. Simple. And simplicity is going to be one of my themes for today. I hope what you take away from this is a sense of urgency and excitement and focus. That is where we are as a leadership team. All three of those qualities, urgency, excitement, and focus, are going to be what we need over the next 5 years. Our vision here is that we will evolve to excel in new areas and expand our reach globally in order to maximize the impact of a William and Mary education for our students. I'm going to just start with a key question: why is 2026 the arrival point for this roadmap? And I'm going to give you 3 answers to that question. The first answer, very straightforwardly, whoops, that's the wrong one, is that we need to get real now, straightforwardly, to think about the here and now and the kinds of impact that we can have now. Vision is crucial, but more important right now is going to be the impact that we can have within a defined time frame. And this roadmap focuses on our comparative advantages in having that impact. We're using an approach that we learned under pandemic, which is to set direction from the center and the top, but to implement, design, and get things moving locally where the experts are. So you'll see that center-led, locally designed pattern all the way through this plan. The second reason for 2026 is that it is the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country. In 4.5 years, I'm going to have a lot to say about that. But right now, I'm just going to simply say that the obligation to protect and sustain and re-envision what it means to be part of a pluralistic democracy is ours. It's our obligation and our opportunity, I think. And I'm going to give you what you'll probably hear more than once over the next 5 years, the words of the wonderful Bart Giamatti describing a liberal arts classroom. He says, every classroom is an act of making citizens in the realm of that room. And every room is a figure for the larger community. So as we think about what it means to be celebrating, moving towards the celebration, the complex celebration of the 250th anniversary of the founding of our country, think about that idea of the classroom as a realm of making citizens in that room and a realm of making citizens for the community. Even before the war in Ukraine, national and global events were showing us how vulnerable globally our country and other countries are. We were seeing attacks on democracy, and we're seeing right now that there are some ideals that are worth fighting for. We're called back to that core idea at a really important moment, even when it means putting one's self at risk, which we are seeing around the world. Our powerful assets here are, I'll just start with truer, fuller stories about the founding of our country, a commitment to facts as a public good, and to open debate, which we stand for, and the power to build and uphold institutions, which we have done since our founding and we continue to do. Our judiciary, free elections, free press, freedom of expression, academic freedom, and more. So I'll add to that finally our location, which you're going to hear again threading through this roadmap for the next hour. Last but not least of these 3 reasons why 2026 matters so much, it is the demographic cliff, the moment in which in our country traditional college-going aged students are going to drop off demographically very swiftly and very starkly. And we have seen, I said this at the Arts and Sciences faculty meeting last week, we know what it feels like, what it's actually like to have a 7% or so drop in enrollments. We've seen something like that very directly last year, and we don't want to be there. We are fortunate in so many ways that we have the opportunity to plan for that moment. Every other higher ed institution in the country is doing that as well. We're in very good company. But the ways that we evolve in planning for that are what is going to set us on the right course for the next 10 years and 50 years and for all time coming. I'm going to start, before I get to the goals, just say a few words about what's different about this planning process than the others that we've gone through. Our approach here is different from 1993, different from 2008, but a little bit of a combination of those two. In 93, as those who were here will remember, there was limited engagement, very clear and highly focused plan. In 2008, broad engagement, an expansive plan that went so far as to name almost all units. In 2022, we're combining those approaches. We're inviting all units in to a focused set of directions and actions, many of those actions planned by the leaders of the units. We've sought opportunities in this to create separation. You'll remember I often quote Jill Ellis, right? She says there's two ways to compete when you're seeking here, in this case, to bring students here, to bring faculty and staff here. One is to try to match the excellence of other organizations, and the other is to create separation, to get a gap. And that's what we're seeking to do, to create separation. And we're doing that around the idea of problem solving, the third theme you're going to hear thread through this presentation. So, to advance our distinctive excellence and achieve our vision for the future, we're going to pursue three high-level goals. The first is to expand William & Mary's reach. William & Mary has ambitious global aspirations. We have for a very, very long time. And we have work to do to raise our visibility globally and our reputation for academic quality. We know that through many studies. We know that through the work of the Reeve Center. Our core objectives here are to advance knowledge. We need to be more intentional about how we do that in supporting research and the impact of our scholarship, to strengthen our global position, to seek ways in which to extend our presence through research service and work abroad for our students, and as a place of universal learning, that's from our charter, located in the birthplace of our nation's democracy, we want to redouble our efforts to support evidence-based argument and discovery, civil discourse, and the process of engaging diverse viewpoints, because that's what makes our ideas stronger. The second goal is to educate for impact. Technology is rapidly increasing the pace of change in every industry. We're seeing every job change, including our own in higher ed, incredibly rapidly. How we prepare our students and our future colleagues to thrive in a world in which work is changing so fast, that is going to be critical to our future success. We've learned from our positioning studies that expanding our capacity in fields that are quickly growing is going to be one of our key success factors. That's one of the ways in which we align with the evolutions that we're seeing in our disciplines and in our jobs. We need to provide equitable and affordable opportunities to learn, and we need to create meaningful pathways from liberal arts and sciences degrees to jobs, the first, the fifth, and the last job. Now, this is just a little different, not a lot different, but a little different than the way that I was taught as a graduate student and undergraduate to think about liberal arts and sciences education. I was taught that we were learning for our fifth job and beyond. And we know now that there is no binary between that kind of learning and the passionate pursuit of impact in the world. In fact, to suggest that there is itself a false dichotomy. Right now, we are preparing our students to land, to find work that they care about, to find communities that they want to work in, and to keep evolving, learning as they go. So lifelong learning, which is what we aspire for them, is something that should start in college. Lifelong learning at work, in applied context, should start in college. That's part of what we mean by educate for impact. Our third objective here is to have a really clear focus on evolving as we go, evolving in incremental ways towards goals, testing solutions as we go, and refining to find the stronger path. We aim to embrace change as a way of achieving our potential. And those are the three key success factors that I think we're going to be facing in the next 5 years. We need to create financial sustainability, the conditions for that. We need to ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workplaces and in our classrooms. And we need to ensure operational excellence. And as I'm looking at this room, I see many, many people who, especially that last phrase, are going to resonate with. I am a little geeky about making the work processes that we live with day to day really, really good to optimize your time, because the most important asset that we have is human time. It's the time of our people, our faculty and our staff and our students. So those are our objectives. I'm going to just, before I get to the initiatives, when I was waiting here, talk a little bit about how we get to how we got to the big 4 ideas. Then I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to take some questions that came into us over the course of the last week. We invited members of the community, and I know folks watching online are in this group, to send us questions. So let me pause for just a second and remind you that in each of those areas, expanding our reach, educating for impact, and evolving to excel, you've already seen for some months the framework of actions into which the university is planning in. This is the Design Locally framework that came out of the extensive work of the Strategic Planning Steering Committee. Familiar? Yes? It's all up on the website. One of the things happened here as Cabinet began to plan in over the last year to this framework. We saw from the campus consistent patterns of convergence. And that's what led to those 4 areas that we've highlighted as cornerstones of the plan. So that's your preview. Before I get there, let me give you a couple of questions, 4 questions from the community. First, from a staff member. What impact will the university's strategic plan have on our entire William & Mary community? My answer to that is relevance. Relevance is what brings resources. Relevance is what brings extraordinary human beings to this community, faculty, staff, and students. And it's what positions William & Mary and our people to meet some of the most pressing needs of the moment, the pressing needs of now. It's going to take our entire community, everybody that I just named and more, to sustain that relevance over the next 5 years. So think of yourselves as being invited in by this plan to come say, here's what I can bring towards these goals. Bring that directly to your manager, bring that directly to your dean, bring that directly to your cabinet member, and we're keen to hear from you, how you can contribute in very concrete ways to them. Second question from a student. This is a funny one. Are there any plans in Vision 2026 to update student housing? And the answer is yes. In fact, in April, we are going to be rolling out a housing and dining master plan for the community that's going to show how over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to update housing and dining on this campus. So I think I would want to say to the person asking that question and all the other people who have that question as well, one of the things that we learned from pandemic is that hospitality is an incredibly important part of our community. It's what makes it possible for human beings to gather here and learn together. When we invite somebody to come study here, we're inviting them to come study together. And so housing and dining matter enormously to our teaching, learning, and research mission, even though they may not be the first things that you think about when you think about academics or education. They matter enormously. So thank you to those who make hospitality a priority here. And yes, we're going to be out in April with a new housing and dining master plan. Let's see, third question from a faculty member. How are the humanities reflected in Vision 2026? Also a wonderful question for a Shakespeare scholar who spent 20, 25 years in this space teaching and learning and making new knowledge. And my answer, of course, is everywhere. The humanities are everywhere here. I can't help but see them everywhere here, but that's in familiar and in new ways, I think. We spoke with an alum, a number of us, a couple of weeks ago about what made his experience learning as an undergraduate humanist at William & Mary so powerful in his current working life. And he said two things. He said, everything I do is two things. I tell stories and I solve problems. Storytelling is the traditional purview of the humanities, the arts, the creative arts more broadly. Speaking as a literary scholar, that's the field that we focus on really powerfully. How are stories made? How can they be true? How can fiction tell true, convey true things? How is storytelling powerful in moving human beings, in changing directions of large groups, communities? The humanities are also evolving very rapidly. So many of the traditional questions that we asked in thinking about the history of reading and writing, for example, how that has changed over time. That's what I study. How it is changing now. Many of those questions are getting new tools in answering them. And again, last week at the Arts and Sciences faculty members meeting, I said, if the director of the Folger Shakespeare Library is using natural language processing and data analytics to study Shakespeare's genres, great traditional longstanding questions that we haven't been able to answer about how Shakespeare's genres change. That's a call to say there's a new toolkit out in the humanities that we can use and should be using. So that's a short answer. I'm happy to weave humanities answers into every single part of this, but I won't allow myself to geek out too much. I think maybe the longer answer is that we are always evolving in the liberal arts, and that William & Mary aims to embrace that evolution in the liberal arts and sciences, embrace it for now in a way that integrates new toolkits. For us right now, it's toolkits of data analysis, computational modeling, visualization, and statistics that have become important to fields that for a long time weren't quite so computational and quantitative, but that bring us evidence for the questions that we care about as humanists. All right, from a student, what is your vision for the future of admission? I started to talk about that a little bit. Maybe I'll say a few more things about recent trends. We have seen record application numbers at William & Mary since over the last 2 years, really since pandemic. We saw a 23% increase last year and then another 3.5% increase this year over that prior 23%. That's extraordinary, and it has brought us among the most competitive classes that we have ever had. Classes that are diverse, classes that focus on scholarship, on impact in the world, classes that are truly exceptional, and that is our goal. And as we think about 2026, we know that that trend is not likely to continue. So expanding our reach, continuing to focus on scholarships, focusing on new communities of students that we haven't traditionally invited here, focusing on adult learning, on workplace learning, and thinking across the globe about where the students are who would thrive at William & Mary. That is part of our work over the next 5 years. So I hope that answers that question. And then from an alumnus, and this is a real question. I asked if it was real because it's too perfect, but how can alumni make sure that when we're giving our time, our talent, and our treasure, we're supporting Vision 2026? Thank you for that question. So there are many wonderful opportunities here, and they will continue to evolve because this is a centrally led direction, locally designed solution roadmap. Those opportunities are going to include things like providing an internship for a student or connecting a student or an alum with their second or third job or their first job, serving as a mentor, helping to make professional connections, making a gift to support the Fund for William & Mary and one of our Cornerstone initiatives or an initiative at one of our units. So get involved. That's the answer. All right, so those are some of the questions that came in, a couple of them pretty common, like the one about housing. And the one from alumni, I hope, will be more common. And I'm going to move to talk about the part that is relatively new in this plan, which is the 4 Cornerstone initiatives. But I want to first show you how we got to them. As I said, as cabinet members began to synthesize the work of planning in towards the goals that we had laid out for the plan, what happened is that we noticed really significant convergence. So those were the 4 domains that we've mapped out under the 3 domains and 3 goals. And this is what happened. We couldn't figure out where to put things that were coming up over and over again. In each of these 4 domains, what you have is areas of very, very strong convergence in the answers the community gave to these 4 goals. So I'm going to spend a little time with each of them: data, water, democracy, and careers. I'll just say a few things to set them up here, but then I'm going to take a break and invite people who can speak and have been part of the planning process for 3 of these 4 key domains, key cornerstones, to answer some questions with us in the room. There's one other way, though, in which these 4 domains emerged in Cabinet's conversations, and that is because as we did environmental scans, and you'll remember this if you look at the white papers that are on their website, one of the things that came up over and over again is that great universities are known for specific things. In these 4 domains, we have areas where William & Mary has a comparative advantage, where William & Mary has deep expertise or broad expertise. In each of those domains, you'll notice that broad expertise being harnessed, even though much of what we say about 2026 is very, very simple. Our aim is to invite every department and unit in and to get very focused about having an impact in these areas. The 4 Cornerstone initiatives, as I said, are data, water, democracy, and careers. These are cross-university initiatives. They connect multiple different parts of the university. And in this one here in particular, they focus on a core challenge that we're seeing in the world right now. Everywhere, every industry, every community is grappling with how to use its data in a way that is ethical, mission-driven, focused on outcomes for an organization or a community. William & Mary has a competitive advantage in addressing what is fundamentally a global challenge, and a challenge specifically for students going into the workplace. That we integrate knowledge from diverse fields and disciplines, that many, many of our students are learning in this liberal arts and sciences mode, both quantitative and qualitative skills. This is the goal under this larger umbrella of data, to lead the evolution of the liberal arts and sciences by integrating data fluency into the fields that are exploring it now to advance inquiry, discovery, and innovation. And here is, every time I say pride point, please understand I'm saying competitive advantage, okay? Comparative advantage as well. That we graduate already more students per capita with computer science degrees than many of the leading universities in Virginia, including the one that was founded by one of our alums. That data collection and synthesis and application to real-world issues are a hallmark of so many different parts of this institution across divisions, social sciences, humanities, sciences. If you're not on that list, this is just examples. Happy to put you up there and begin to ask how you might advance this core idea. Water. Should I do questions now, or shall I break it up to do questions now? I'll do that. Okay, let me back up. I'm going to stop here and invite Peggy Agouris up, and we're going to talk a little bit more about data. And then we are going to move on at that point, and I will pretend to be Derek Day, and I will impersonate him to talk about water. Okay. Okay, so here's the core claim. In the 21st century, data fluency is going to be a key liberal art and science and social science, and probably art. That fluency in data is going to be interfused in everything about what it means to be a broadly educated human being who works across a range of different kinds of knowledge and has a range of different kinds of skills. We have a long tradition here of adapting our learning to the ways that knowledge is changing. We've done that for over 3 centuries, and our goal here is to lead in this realm as we have in others. So I want to start by asking you, as somebody who has worked in this field, more broadly information scientists, what business you think William & Mary has in entering this space and how we can perhaps lead.
Yes, that is a very good question, but you just described a lot of ways that we have already been there. So we're not chasing after the field. The field or all these developments are there. So it's the other way around. We are not going after something that takes us a certain way. We are there and we need to move forward this way because that is part already of the world around us, of what we do, the way we work, the way we entertain ourselves, and the way we communicate. So it's not an initiative that gives us the luxury of adding something new. It is a way to get to appreciate and infuse what is already out there into what we already do well.
And evolving. Okay,
exactly.
So what will our differentiator be then?
Well, William & Mary has been known for more than 300 years as a liberal arts and sciences university, and that has brought with it recognition in a variety of areas that are very critical in combination with what the areas that we are seeing behind us are, giving us strengths in critical thinking, in understanding, leading, and evaluating, in contributing in ways that are not just quantitative, but qualitative. So it is a powerful combination to bring the qualitative and the quantitative together, support one by the other, and William & Mary is the perfect environment to do that.
We have a deep, at least in the last 10 years, as I know it, a deep tradition of students majoring across domains.
Exactly.
And showing those kinds of dual skill sets.
Exactly.
So the key word that I am starting to hear again is engineering, and I think that's a word that has had a history at William & Mary, and it's a word that means new things with every 5-year evolution. Are we talking about turbines?
No.
Okay. So what are we actually talking about when you and I say the word engineering? What do you want us to mean?
So engineering is not just a discipline or a field. It's the way to make things happen, things that are happening in the classroom, in the lab. Science, humanities, social sciences need a way to be translated into tools, products, aspects that the world can use and improve its conditions and well-being. So engineering is not something that has an expiration date. So you cannot say traditional fields have been around for many years. Yes, but we have seen that emerging fields of engineering are coming. And the reason is that we always will need a way to implement what we are already doing, which is really what engineering does. So I'm sure that a lot of us have heard the new areas of cybersecurity engineering or digital engineering. So we're not going to reinvent or do the areas in classical hard engineering. We're going to do the William & Mary engineering, which is actually take what we do best and figure out ways to implement it and give back to the community and the world tools and applications that can make their lives better.
Okay, so if I hear whenever you say that, I'm hearing use digital technology in applied ways to have an impact.
Yes.
Often designing new
Yes.
solutions to the
Exactly.
kinds of problems that we're seeing.
Exactly.
Okay, so how is it this turn or this leaning into our strength in applied knowledge and applied learning, how is that going to enable us to excel?
So by improving certain things or actually adding new things that can really, take us further down the road of discovery and knowledge, we are buoying everything. So you said a very nice example from your own work with the natural languages and the machine learning helping the humanities in asking questions and figuring out better, more sophisticated answers. So the way this is going to help the university is not only creating new areas that we already have significant work, making them more prominent, like for instance in the computational sciences, but also using that part to buoy the other areas that can benefit from that and vice versa. So combining the let's just say, natural language processing with linguistics really brings forward both areas. And this is the University of the Ampersand, and this is what we're going to be doing.
That's awesome. There's great work, by the way. Now we've twice referenced the Folger Shakespeare Library. You can find that research if you want to go look it up. It's by my wonderful colleague, Michael Whitmore. Peggy, that was fabulous. Thank you. I know there's lots more questions to explore, and I would just keep saying this is the starting place, not the ending place. We're looking forward to exploring with you. Thank you. I'm going to grab my clicker, but I'm going to sit here and pretend I'm with Derek Aday, our new dean at VIMS. All right? So, as I said, one of the things that's different about this strategic plan is that it's organized, the second half of it here is organized around a core set of questions and then the solutions that we can bring as a university. Questions that don't yet have key answers to them, critical answers that we do need. Here's the challenge that we're facing. Next to human talent, the world's most threatened resource is going to be water. That's the hypothesis that we're working with. Think about climate change, drought and flood, coastal instability due to sea level rise, and all of the economic and social consequences to every part of human activity that you can imagine happening soon with incredibly adverse effects. A broad array of new industries developed to find solutions to those problems. Needing great talent, needing human beings who will be the problem solvers as well as the storytellers. We're in a swamp, right? An estuarine campus, as I prefer to say. So this is a local problem for us, real, here, and now. And it is a problem that is also one that so many communities around the world face. The hypothesis is that William & Mary is poised to be a leader in the development of the solutions that we are going to need to these complex challenges over the next 50 years, and that our graduates are going to be that next generation of scientists and industry professionals to steward the world's water resources. Here's the assets. Oh, there's the claim, the hypothesis that we're putting forward. And here's the assets that we bring, just some examples of them, to a question that is very immediate, very local to us here in Virginia, in the Tidewater, and also a pressing global problem. So if Dean Aday were here, he's serving as our sponsor to this initiative, organizing inputs from around the campus. Here are the kinds of questions we would be addressing to him, and here's the answers he would give. So I asked him just a few weeks ago, what can William & Mary do today to help address some of the greatest threats to water? Wonderfully, reassuringly, he said, we're already working to expand our reach in thinking about really thorny problems such as water quality, warming temperatures, invasive species, human use in coastal and marine ecosystems. VIMS in particular, as many of you know, has been incredibly successful in doing that, but we need to do more in several strategic areas related to global change. So he listed the following: conservation of important systems, mitigating outcomes where we can, adapting to impacts that are already occurring, and promoting resilience in the face of future changes in these ecosystems and the communities that depend upon them. And we're going to do that in the classic ways that we do and that VIMS does, which adds something to our toolkit: cutting-edge research, teaching and learning, and advisory services that directly address the needs of the Commonwealth and communities beyond. Educating for impact is one of the things. This is one of the things that we mean when we talk about educating for impact, expanding our academic offerings and opportunities to better prepare that next generation of scientists, very straightforwardly. I asked him, for those who think William & Mary's focus on conservation and water issues have centered only on Virginia, how will this initiative expand William & Mary's reach? Right, so remember, each of those three goals that we laid out for every unit is driving these four areas. So how will this focus on water expand William & Mary's reach? And Dean Aday's answer was this: science starts as place-based work. It starts as place-based work. Virginia and the Chesapeake Bay offer powerful model systems. The work that we do directly in Virginia and on the Chesapeake Bay will serve as a model for coastal ecosystems and communities around the nation and the world, straightforwardly. And VIMS and many of our units in law, in arts and sciences, work on other similar systems outside of Virginia and have extensive collaborations with researchers, with universities in other countries and around the United States. We intend to expand that over time, those collaborations. You already know that conservation work at William & Mary is focused in both national and international issues through entities such as the IIC. Expect more of that kind of collaboration. And by increasing academic program offerings, we're going to influence the science around the world and around the nation by training that next generation. So coming back again to that same domain of educating for impact. Then the last thing I'll just say is that Dina Day called out the multidisciplinary nature of William & Mary, the centers, the institutes, and the schools, as central to success in this initiative. In other words, William & Mary has more than just VIMS, right? We have an entire institute at the law school focused on local coastal policy. We have opportunities in the business school, in arts and sciences, and in education as we consider the full range of economic, social, and cultural impacts on global change, especially on the huge populations in coastal habitats. So from his perspective, one of the incredible attractions of anchoring this kind of work at William & Mary is precisely the multidisciplinary nature of our community of practice. Okay, so that's me doing my best to imitate Derek Day. And I very much hope the community is going to get more opportunities to see him. And to our colleagues at VIMS, please note I'm wearing the VIMS pin, I'm representing, and I'm very coachable. So if I got anything wrong here, just correct me. So, democracy. A super fun one. Here's the challenge, or the set of challenges that we're facing. This is an incredibly timely topic. So I'm going to take a little more time with this. How is my time? Okay. So as I said right at the beginning, we are 4.5 years away from the 250th anniversary of the founding of this country. We are deeply divided. A majority of our country is deeply challenged to have productive debates about the issues that they disagree on, the issues that matter. Chancellor Gates said on Charter Day in 2018, our challenge today goes beyond inclusivity. It goes to our growing inability to discuss our differences civilly with an open mind and an open heart. These are the preconditions for inclusion in any community: an open mind and an open heart, the ability to discuss deeply in a sustained way our disagreements. And the pursuit of a more perfect union anywhere in the world and here depends on that essential work, essential for a pluralistic democracy. So there's much to learn from, we believe, in reflecting on our own history and from the study of democracies around the world. Nevertheless, we're still looking at a moment in time right now when trust in institutions is very, very low. I'm encouraged by a slight tick up in trust in higher ed institutions, but there does seem to be less hope that the existential challenges that we're facing are going to be resolvable. Telling the truth and conveying hope is one of the most important tasks of any problem solver. Here's how it is now. Here's where we can go if we do that work together. And I will just say a shared commitment to the facts and to evidence is a precondition for constructive disagreement. These are the things that we teach, that we're committed to. This is the proposition that we're committing to under this Cornerstone initiative. And here's some of our comparative advantages, just the amount that would fit on a slide. But there's so much more at this institution. First of all, we are bucking a trend in trust. Higher ed is bucking a trend in trust in institutions, ticking up over the past year. As the alma mater of the nation, the question is the role that we are going to play in bridging the divides around us and advancing stronger and more inclusive unions. William & Mary is going to ensure that our nation's stories are expansive, are honestly told, and in doing so, we can unite ourselves, because a commitment to knowledge as a public good is a commitment to bridging divides and to healing the depredations of the past. Here's the core claim, that it's our obligation and our opportunity to do this in the years ahead. I'm going to invite Steve Hanson up right now and spend a little bit more time talking about this. But I want to just call out that we have multiple moments to be focusing on what it means to found and make democracy in the past and in the present and for the future over the next 5 years. We're in the midst of 10 years of centennials. And if you look at what's coming, 23, the Brafferton, 24, the opening of the Bray School, and in 2026, not just the 250th anniversary of this country, but the 250th anniversary of Phi Beta Kappa. Come on, help me out here, guys. Colonial Williamsburg, 100 years, founded to recover that history. And there's one more. Say it again. And I did say Phi Beta Kappa, yes. First Baptist Church, the oldest continuously operating African-American church founded before the founding of this country here in this town. So one of the hypotheses is, again, very local. Science starts in a place-based way. So does history, so do the humanities start in a place-based way and then expand very rapidly. We have partners to be able to tell our history and imagine our future differently in a way that few universities in the country do in this town. I grew up in Boston. I raised my kids in Philadelphia. But the version of the founding of our country and the future of our country that's going to matter most is here in Williamsburg. And we don't often claim to bump elbows with Boston and Philadelphia, but over the next 5 years, we're going to. All right, thanks for joining, Steve. I just want to take a moment now before we start to say thank you for your talk last week. Incredibly sobering, and thinking about what is the future for Ukraine in this conflict. Incredibly sobering to think about the threats to democracy worldwide. This is a community I know that's deeply saddened by the invasion and the damage that we're seeing to civilian communities, to democratic principles, to a government, the dislocation, the suffering that's so vivid every single day. I will say again, this war reminds us that there are ideals that are worth fighting for. And we're seeing human beings put themselves at risk to do that. And it's inspiring as well as incredibly sobering. So I wonder if you'd say just a few things that you've been thinking about in the last week about that after your talk.
Thank you, President Rowe. And it's absolutely sobering, and our hearts go out to all the victims of this unprovoked attack on democratic Ukraine by the Russian Federation and President Putin. We are dealing with a moment that really is vital for the future of global democracy. And in a way, this has been building for 20 years with Putin's election. We really are seeing this wave of patrimonial leaders, to use the phrase that the great German sociologist Max Weber used. Actually used it to describe the Tsarist regime. But it fits really well in the contemporary context, not just in Russia. This weird resurgence of the idea that you can have not just one man rule, and I use man on purpose, but also personalistic loyalty and the treatment of the entire state as if it's the personal property of the ruler as a model for modern governance. And that really in many ways has spread across the globe in the last 20 years. So this moment shows us that you can't just play with these things. You can't say this would be great because we could use it to batter down the parts of the meritocracy we don't like or the parts of globalization we don't like. The reality is when you get patrimonial rule, you get patrimonial foreign policy. In other words, imperialism. This is a straightforward imperial project with modern weaponry, and it's devastating, and it has to stop. So now we see the reality of what we've just been watching grow for 20 years, and the moment has come for the globe to push back, regain a sense of why we fight for democratic ideals, as you said, fight and die for principles. And it's easy for me to say sitting here right now, but the people who are doing it deserve our absolute support.
Thank you. And it's been amazing to see this campus come together with the scholars, helping us understand what's happening, with the students and the arts organizations playing the anthem of Ukraine. This is a sense of real solidarity here that's incredibly moving.
And I'll say just a quick word about that. What's so wonderful about William & Mary's response is it shows that we've kept the cultural side, the analytic side, the Global Research Institute, the Reeve Center, our Russia Post-Soviet program, our student organizations. They're all coming together as one. And it's just a wonderful moment that is badly needed right now.
That's that multidisciplinarity.
It is.
And those three modes, right, of teaching, learning, and making new knowledge that matter most. So let me just bring it back to education and to the role of higher education and William & Mary more specifically in advancing understanding of and sustaining democratic institutions.
Yeah, our democracy initiative, which we've been really building on your initiative and that of Provost Agouris over the last year, I want to first acknowledge my wonderful co-director, Carrie Cooper, the Dean of SWEM Libraries, who is the thought partner and really the co-conspirator in a way, if that works for democratic ideals. Also, Anne-Marie Stock has been just invaluable in our links to Colonial Williamsburg and to our historic campus. We have really an opportunity here to do something different with our democracy initiative than other places. And the reason for that is our goal is to convene great events that bring the community together and elevate our profile, to engage the community itself, the campus community, but also the community of Williamsburg and beyond in this conversation, and in these ways to elevate William & Mary's voice and role in the conversations about national and global democracy that are so vital. We think that's a different approach than some other universities are taking, and we're very proud of what's been accomplished, but a lot more work to do.
So imagine us always looking inward at how we make democratic institutions ourselves, and also looking outward to wherever else in the world those institutions are threatened or being made, building, right?
Absolutely. We want to be a model for that kind of civic discussion that you mentioned in your earlier remarks that has started to fall by the wayside as we've attacked each other. I do think this global moment is one where people may suddenly wake up to the reality we can't afford to just score cheap political points by attacking people within. We actually have to bind together to defend the values that matter, even though we're faulted, and even though this place, William & Mary, has a long history of dealing with the negative sides of this country's founding, slavery, imperialism, exclusion. But if we don't resurrect those ideals and make them better, we're never going to build a more perfect union or a better planet.
So it's heartening to hear, because there are democracy initiatives at universities around the country. It's heartening to hear that you see both that this is a widespread and necessary move, trend in higher education, and that you see us having very distinctive and place-based opportunities there, commitments.
Yeah, and you know what we do see at some other institutions is, ironically, the tendency to make a democracy silo with the initiative. You know, if you build a big center and say it's the democracy center, the danger is that becomes the focal point, and then the rest of the campus and the community and the student body and the alumni are not somehow connected to it.
Right.
We're taking a whole of university approach to this. We are really thinking of it as something in the DNA of William & Mary from its founding. Yes, that has to be improved and resurrected, but one that engages all of us very deeply because of the identity of this place.
So again, I've used themes of building. You'll remember Judge John Charles Thomas at Convocation this year called to our students to be magnificent builders, that this is the time to do that. And I said again at the beginning of this presentation that this is a starting place, not an ending place, this roadmap. Please think of the Democracy Initiative as an invitation to the whole campus, as these other initiatives are, to help build with us and to help use William & Mary's incredible resources to build what should be the pluralistic democracy that we want to be a part of. Thank you. Okay. One more to go. Thank you for still being here. I really appreciate that to those who are online as well. So this word, as I said, is maybe the most counterintuitive for a liberal arts and sciences university, because when many of us who work here grew up into our professions, we were taught that getting a job and studying at university were antithetical activities. And I'm here to tell you that after 30 years or more of being in the profession, that's actually nonsensical, and it's not fair. No woman in 1918 was ready to be told you have to choose between being a thinking person and having an impact in the world. No first-gen student, no veteran coming to William & Mary right now should be told you have to choose between being a citizen, a complex problem solver, and want to have a job. Those things, we all want to contribute. We all want to have a job. We all want to pursue our passions. And those things are not mutually incompatible. So I'm going to come to the challenge here that lies under the word careers. I wanted to say jobs, but that doesn't capture the first to third to fifth to last aspiration of this particular initiative. Here's the challenge, the problem statement that we're trying to solve. You've seen these headlines everywhere, right? There's been an enormous shift in our workforce and our employment during the pandemic. That's true at William & Mary. Nearly every unit is shorthanded. And work is at the same time transforming with extraordinary speed. That's true at William & Mary. Nearly every single activity that we do here changed incredibly rapidly over the last 2 years. And we're still in the process of trying to understand what those changes mean, what we want to preserve from those changes, and what we never ever want to do again. The fluent integration of work and learning is what we need to do now here, what we need to prepare our students to be able to do, and it needs to start in college, as I said. There are a number of different assets that we have in pursuing this proposition. This is the proposition in much more concise words. And I've listed just a few of them on this slide, but there's many, many more. What underlies this is several key success factors. One is hands-on work, taking what you're learning from the classroom into an applied space. That happens in undergraduate research, that happens in study abroad, that happens in community engagement. And one of William & Mary's assets is that we are much deeper in this space of applied learning than most of our peers. We already have separation. We want to add to that at William & Mary the guarantee that every student also has an opportunity as we try to ensure that they have for study abroad, for community engagement, for research, for other kinds of hands-on learning, that they have an opportunity for a funded internship. And the word funded here is key. The internship that you may care about may not pay. You may not have a car that gets you to the city where it is. You may not have the technology at home to do it remotely. You may not have the network to land it. One of the reasons that so few women relative to men, so few minorities relative to majority graduates, so few veterans relative to non-veterans, and more have paid internships is because they don't have the networks to find them and they don't have the resources to take advantage of them. So we aim to close that gap at William & Mary. And it begins with engaging the whole community in how we think about integrating learning and work starting in college. So I want to invite Kathleen Powell, our Chief Careers Officer, up to chat with us about that. So here's the core claim, that William & Mary will be known as the university that brings together the exceptional education and the range of liberal arts and sciences and professional education with extraordinary experiential learning, and that provides the connections that will support our alumni throughout their professional lives. So not just in that first step with your degree into the working place, but beyond. So Kathleen, I'm going to start us off with a question that I know you've thought a lot about, which is that at a time when more and more students and families are questioning the value of a college education, another headline we see a lot, what is valuable about coming here now?
Yeah, so this idea of creating this lifelong career engagement, and it's not only important for the student who's coming, but throughout their lifetime. And that as we understand, as you mentioned, not only the first job, the third job, the fifth job, the seventh job, we want to be the university that actually calls all of our partners in to support our students. So we have 100,000 plus alumni out there, and we're going to call them back to support our current students. And when those students graduate, they're going to help that next generation. So it will just be part of our culture, and it will be part of the William & Mary experience.
Okay, so tell me some concrete things that we're doing to
Okay.
actually achieve that.
Yes. So I love data. I don't know if folks know that, but I love data. So we are actually looking at all of our data, and we're making sure that we are doing what we say we're doing. So the funded internship for every qualified student is first and foremost. We're looking at our alumni, and we're building out some mentoring opportunities and professional development opportunities, not only locally, but regionally, nationally, and globally. So we've already signed on with a platform to do that, so I'm very excited. And I think it's just this idea of how we are thinking about even our office in terms of how we're reaching out and how we're calling partners in. So Chamber RVA, Campus 757, Hampton Roads Workforce Council. So these partners, it's important for us that we're not doing it alone, and our faculty are key. And we're looking at creating those work experiences across all the majors. I think 2/3 of the majors right now have a placeholder for that, and we want to make
Wait,
sure.
pause for a second.
Yes.
This was on our Comparative Advantage Pride Point stat. 2/3 of our undergraduate majors have credit-bearing internships on the books. That's amazing. That is not true at other liberal arts and sciences universities around the country. And I'm sure they're used in lots of different ways, but how to make that something that our students really see as an opportunity as they do community engagement, as they do study abroad, as they do undergraduate research. This is one of our ambitions.
Yeah. I will also say, when you think about employers and what they're looking for, they want that curious student, the eager student, the critical thinking. Those are the key successes for liberal arts and sciences students in their education. So we're actually marrying the academic success with career success, and that's the foundation of what we are at William & Mary.
So let me add, I quoted an alum earlier saying that what he learned at William & Mary was to tell stories and solve problems. There's one more thing that I would add to that we've heard consistently from employers, which is they want human beings who will be accountable for telling the stories truthfully and well, and for solving problems for the organization or the community that matter. So that accountable problem solver idea is one I think that we're extraordinarily well positioned to be able to graduate and make part of what we're known for. Yes.
Right.
So anything else that makes us distinctive?
So another asset is we're actually thinking about how we can do badging and credentialing and setting that up through technology like LearnWorld and Credly, and partnering with the Studio for Teaching, Learning, Innovation, and helping our students do storytelling with Story School. So our students can actually practice, and they can articulate some of the things that they're developing in the classroom and saying, this is what I've learned, this is how I'm doing it, this is why it applies to you. So the problem solving is good, but help understand for the employer that I can help solve your problems is even better.
That's wonderful. Anything that you want to say to folks who want to get involved?
Oh, yes. Thank you. We need you. We need you to be a part of this ecosystem that we're developing. So from the faculty, our students, our employers, our alumni, we can't do this alone. And as we think about the model and the concept that we're developing at William & Mary, which is distinctive than any other institution that I've seen, that we're going to do it better, and we'll do it bigger, and we'll be supporting our students for all time coming because of your support.
So what you can imagine then as graduates that are going out into the world already networked with the people who want to solve the same problems they want to solve, who have the same passions they have, really scaling that up in a way that ensures that all of our graduates have access to it and continue to as they go from their third to their fifth job, and continue to see this institution as one that will help them build that network. Thanks. Thank you. That's the vision. So over the course of the next year, we're going to invite you into deep dives in each of those 4 areas so that we can do more work to engage those in the community who are really called to contribute them. And we'll be doing that with the folks who are leading those areas, as including Dina Day, roughly every quarter or so. As I said, this is a starting place, not an ending place. This is a place to begin building, not finish building. And I'm so thrilled to be able to do it with you. Thank you for coming today. Take care.